camera is recording. So, I always tell people to leave homeschool questions in the comments because that gives me reason and ideas to make videos. If you have the temerity to find my business email and send me a message, you'll probably get my personal number and we'll have a phone call because that's what happened today. And so just based on that conversation, I want to talk about homeschooling after COVID. I have several clients who have come to me this year who started homeschooling before COVID, maybe a year before COVID, and now in the aftermath of COVID, everyone's freaking out and there's a bit of a struggle going on. Speaking of COVID, I was still struggling with my breathing after getting COVID the end of September. I got a B12 shot last Wednesday, and I feel so much better. So if you've had COVID and you're dragging, mostly better, but just dragging, see about getting a B12 shot or at least B12 vitamins because, man, oh man, what a difference. So anyway, what I'm seeing post-COVID is kids with high anxiety. I'm seeing kids who are typically extroverts, struggling with the fact that they were locked in and away from their friend groups and away from their activities for over a year and having a really hard time getting back into that groove. I'm seeing introverts who really like being introverts, who are less willing to socialize now than they ever were before. I'm seeing kids who are just aware of what's going on in the world politically, socially, environmentally, because it's really hard to get away from this kind of information, and who are having emotional crises. I'm seeing kids who just kind of pulled back on their homeschooling, pulled back on their motivation during these last couple of years and are now behind in their work and really struggling to get them back on track. And it's not easy, and it's not gonna be easy, and it's not good. But I do have some recommendations. First of all, take time to really have some heart-to-hearts with your kids and listen to their fears and validate their fears. Yeah. Get them out of the house, whether they have to be masked or not masked, find outdoor activities, whatever you have to do. Homeschool groups, small groups, whatever you have to do to slowly get them back out into the world. And then finally, stop thinking about education in such a linear manner. And this is common for people who are not like lifetime homeschoolers, who have been homeschooling for like just a couple of years, maybe a year or two before COVID happened. We're still thinking first grade. We do first grade, and then we do second grade, and then we do third grade, and then we do fourth grade, yada, yada, yada. It's, look it. It's just not necessary. I'm such a mess today, aren't I? Not have my hair up. Okay. It's just not necessary to think in such a linear fashion when homeschooling. Math, right? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, decimals, percentages, fractions, negative, positive numbers, integers, converting decimals, percentage, fractions, and then order of operations. That's literally all they need to know before they do algebra or pre-algebra. You can jump right into algebra or pre-algebra with that knowledge if they know it well, right? Reading comprehension. Just read. If they can read a newspaper and comprehend it, then they're on a 5th grade level, right? If they can read Mark Twain, if they can read Lord of the Rings, they're on a high middle school level, okay? If they can read Shakespeare and understand it, no fear Shakespeare is my preference. Do I have a copy? If they can read Shakespeare, preferably no fear version because it explains everything, then they're reading on a high school level. Science is repetitive. So as long as they've been exposed to science and exposed to scientific method, they can just jump into high school science, if their reading comprehension and math is right. Social studies, so they've been exposed. They can jump into middle school or high school social studies with no problem. Stop thinking so much in what grade my child is and go ahead and test them. Most states require that you give your homeschoolers a standardized test. I think mine is every 3 years. There's a reason. And the reason isn't to punish us. The reason is so that we can see where our child is and what our child is missing so we can fill in those holes. So go ahead and test them. Figure out what level they're at. Figure out what holes they need. Fill them. And then educate them accordingly. Don't worry so much about grade level. Worry more about subject readiness. That's all. That's it. It's late. Take care. Till next time.